Have you ever found yourself lost in thought or replaying conversations in your head? You're not alone. Overthinking is a common experience that can leave us feeling drained, anxious, and uncertain. But what happens in our brains when we overthink? Can we change our brain's patterns? Let's explore the neuroscience behind overthinking and find some answers. When we overthink, our brains enter a state of rumination. This is when our minds spin on loops, replaying past events or worrying about the future. But what's happening in our brains that makes us get stuck in this cycle? Research suggests that our brains have a default mode network, DMN, that's active during mind wandering. The DMN is like a network of brain cells that talk to each other, creating a never-ending conversation. But here's the thing. Our brains are wired to respond to threats, and overthinking can become a threat in itself. When we're stuck in our heads, we're not present for the world around us. We miss out on opportunities, relationships suffer, and our mental health takes a hit. So, what can we do to break free from overthinking? Let's explore the science behind it and find some simple ways to find mental calm. Have you ever found yourself lost in thought, wandering through memories of the past, or worrying about the future? You're not alone. This is the realm of the brain's default mode network, DMN, a network of brain regions that's active when we're mind wandering. The DMN is like a mental time machine, constantly taking us on journeys through our past experiences and hypothetical futures. When the DMN is in overdrive, it can lead to a vicious cycle of overthinking. We dwell on past regrets, replaying conversations or decisions we wish we'd handled differently. We worry about the future, imagining all the things that could go wrong. This mental time travel can be a heavy burden, weighing us down with anxiety, stress, and even depression. But here's the thing, the DMN isn't inherently bad. It's a natural part of our brain's functioning, designed to help us learn from our experiences and plan for the future. The problem arises when the DMN becomes stuck in a loop, perpetuating overthinking and mental fatigue. So, what can we do to break free from this cycle? First, let's acknowledge that awareness is the first step towards change. By recognizing how our DMN is driving our overthinking, we can start to develop strategies to manage it. One approach is to practice mindfulness, paying attention to the present moment and letting go of mental time travel. Another strategy is to challenge our thoughts, asking ourselves if they're based in reality or if they're just hypothetical scenarios. We can also try to reframe our thoughts, focusing on the present moment and what we can control. The impact of excessive DMN activity on mental health can't be overstated. Chronic overthinking can lead to anxiety, depression, and even burnout. But by understanding the role of the DMN and developing strategies to manage it, we can start to find mental calm and reduce our risk of mental health issues. So the next time you find yourself lost in thought, remember that you're not alone. Your DMN is just doing its job, taking you on a mental journey through time. But by acknowledging its role and developing strategies to manage it, you can start to break free from the cycle of overthinking and find peace in the present moment. Have you ever felt like your brain is a never-ending factory, churning out thoughts at an alarming rate? That's because of the prefrontal cortex, PFC, the part of our brain responsible for executive function and decision-making. When we overthink, our PFC becomes overwhelmed, leading to cognitive exhaustion. It's like trying to run a marathon without stopping. Eventually, we hit a wall. But what's driving this mental marathon? One key player is dopamine, the brain's reward system. When we engage in overthinking, our brain releases dopamine, which reinforces the behavior. It's like getting a hit of caffeine. We feel a temporary boost, but it comes at a cost. Chronic overthinking can lead to mental fatigue, where our brain feels like it's stuck in a perpetual state of on. The PFC is designed to make decisions, but when it's constantly bombarded with thoughts, it becomes mired in analysis paralysis. We get stuck in a loop of what-ifs and maybes, unable to make a decision or take action. This can have a profound impact on our mental health, leading to anxiety, depression, and even burnout. The good news is that awareness is the first step towards change. By recognizing how our brain's reward system is perpetuating overthinking, we can start to break free from its grasp. It's not about suppressing our thoughts or trying to control them. It's about developing a new relationship with our mind. By acknowledging the cost of overthinking and taking small steps towards mental calm, we can begin to heal and find a sense of peace. In the next section, we'll explore how emotions play a role in overthinking and how we can develop a more compassionate relationship with our emotions. But for now, let's take a moment to acknowledge the toll that overthinking can take on our mental health. By recognizing the impact of chronic overthinking on our PFC and overall well-being, we can start to make a change. Have you ever felt like your mind is racing and you can't seem to catch your breath? It's like being stuck in a never-ending loop of thoughts, worries, and fears. This is the power of overthinking, and it's a pattern that can be both debilitating and exhausting. But here's the thing, emotions play a huge role in perpetuating overthinking. Fear, anxiety, and stress can trigger a cascade of thoughts that feel impossible to shake. When we're in a state of high alert, our brain's default mode network, DMN, kicks into overdrive. The DMN is responsible for mind wandering, mindless wandering, and mental time travel. It's like our brain is constantly replaying past events, worrying about the future, and dwelling on what-ifs. This can lead to a vicious cycle of rumination, where we're stuck in a never-ending loop of thoughts that feel impossible to escape. But here's the good news. Awareness is the first step towards change. When we recognize how emotions can trigger overthinking, we can start to break free from the grip of fear, anxiety, and stress. We can learn to recognize the signs of emotional hijacking and take steps to calm our minds. By doing so, we can start to rebuild our mental health and find a sense of peace and clarity. It's not about being reckless or ignoring our emotions. It's about learning to navigate them in a healthy way. We can use techniques like grounding, journaling, and mindfulness to calm our minds and find a sense of presence. We can learn to reframe overthinking as sensitivity, curiosity, and depth, rather than a weakness or a flaw. And we can start to see that overthinking is not all bad. It's a pattern that can be a catalyst for growth, creativity, and self-awareness. So let's take a deep breath and start to explore the role of emotions in overthinking. Let's talk about how fear, anxiety, and stress can trigger a cascade of thoughts that feel impossible to shake. And let's discover the power of awareness, self-compassion, and mindfulness in breaking free from the grip of overthinking. Have you ever tried to stop thinking about a particular thought, only to find that it only makes it worse? You're not alone. This paradox of thought is a common phenomenon, and it's rooted in the way our brains work. When we try to suppress a thought, it can actually fuel more thinking. This is because our brains are wired to respond to threats, and when we try to push away a thought, it can trigger a stress response, making it harder to calm down. One classic study, the white bear experiment, demonstrated this effect. In this study, participants were asked to suppress thoughts of a white bear. However, the more they tried to suppress the thought, the more it came back stronger. This is because our brains are designed to respond to threats, and when we try to suppress a thought, it can trigger a stress response, making it harder to calm down. This is where metacognition comes in, thinking about thinking. When we become aware of our thoughts, we can start to see them for what they are, just thoughts. We are not our thoughts, we are the observer. This shift in perspective can be incredibly powerful. By recognizing that we are not our thoughts, we can start to let go of the need to control them. This is where mindfulness comes in, a shift in perspective, not control. Mindfulness is not about stopping your thoughts, it's about being present with them. When we're mindful, we can start to see our thoughts as passing clouds, rather than getting caught up in them. This can be incredibly liberating. By letting go of the need to control our thoughts, we can start to find mental calm. And that's precisely what we'll explore next: how to cultivate this sense of calm and how to use it to transform our lives. Have you ever felt like your mind is a runaway train, with thoughts racing and emotions swirling? It's like trying to catch your breath, but the more you try, the more you feel like you're drowning in a sea of anxiety. But what if I told you that there are simple ways to find mental calm, even in the midst of chaos? It starts with recognizing that overthinking is not just a problem, but also an opportunity for growth. One of the most effective ways to calm your mind is through grounding techniques. The 5-4-3-2-1 method is a great place to start. Take a deep breath in and out and notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This helps you focus on the present moment, rather than getting caught up in worries about the past or future. Another technique is the name your thought method. When you notice your mind wandering, simply acknowledge the thought and give it a name. I'm thinking about work. I'm worried about money. I'm feeling anxious. By doing this, you create some space between yourself and your thoughts and can begin to observe them more clearly. Journaling can also be a powerful tool for releasing thoughts and emotions. Write down your thoughts, feelings, and concerns, and then let them go. This helps you process your experiences and gain clarity on what's truly important. Mindfulness meditation is another way to cultivate mental calm. You can start with guided meditations or guided visualizations, and then move on to silent meditation. The key is to focus on your breath and let go of distractions. Finally, consider setting mental time limits and worrying sessions. Allow yourself a set amount of time to worry about a particular issue, and then let it go. This can help you feel more in control and more at peace. The power of good enough is also worth exploring. Sometimes, we get caught up in perfectionism and overthinking because we're afraid of making mistakes. But what if we could let go of that need for perfection and simply do our best? This can be incredibly liberating. One person who learned to do just that is Sarah. She used to spend hours rewriting emails and worrying about what others might think. But one day, she realized that she was stuck in a pattern of overthinking. She started small, taking short breaks to focus on her breath, and gradually built up her self-compassion. Now, she's able to approach challenges with a sense of curiosity and openness, rather than fear and anxiety. So, what if you could find mental calm, even in the midst of chaos? What if you could learn to observe your thoughts, rather than getting caught up in them? It starts with small steps and a willingness to explore new ways of thinking. What if overthinking is not the enemy we've been trying to defeat? What if it's actually a sign of our sensitivity, curiosity, and depth? Think about it. When we're overthinking, we're not just stuck in a cycle of negative thoughts. We're also reflecting on our experiences, relationships, and relationships. We're trying to make sense of the world, and that's a beautiful thing. The gift of reflection is a powerful one. When channeled constructively, it can help us learn from our mistakes, grow as individuals, and develop empathy for others. It's a chance to explore our thoughts, emotions, and emotions, and to gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. But how do we balance introspection with action? How do we avoid getting stuck in our own thoughts and instead use them as a catalyst for growth and change? The answer lies in self-compassion. When we're kind to ourselves, we're more likely to approach our thoughts with curiosity and openness, rather than judgment and fear. You're not broken, you're deeply human. You're wired to think, and feel deeply. And that's something to be celebrated, not something to be ashamed of. So, the next time you catch yourself overthinking, try to reframe it as a sign of your sensitivity, curiosity, and depth. See it as an opportunity to learn, and grow as a person. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. Have you ever felt like your thoughts are a runaway train, impossible to catch or calm? Like no matter how hard you try, they just keep swirling, making it hard to focus, sleep, or even breathe. That's the power of overthinking in action. It can feel like a stormy sea, tossing you about with every wave. But here's the thing, overthinking isn't a fixed part of who we are. It's a pattern that can change. And that's where guided visualization comes in, a powerful tool to help you calm the mind and find peace. Imagine yourself standing on a serene beach, feeling the warm sand beneath your feet. The sky above is a brilliant blue, with just a few wispy clouds drifting lazily across it. As you breathe in, feel the salty air fill your lungs, and as you exhale, imagine any thoughts or worries floating away like clouds on the breeze. Notice how your body relaxes, how your mind begins to let go of its grip on every thought. You're not trying to control your thoughts, you're simply observing them as they drift by, like clouds passing in the sky. And with each breath, you return to the present moment, feeling more grounded, more grounded in your own skin. Remember, overthinking is just a pattern, and patterns can change. By acknowledging this, you're taking the first step towards breaking free from the cycle of rumination. And with guided visualization, you can start to cultivate a sense of calm, a sense of peace that's always within reach. So take a deep breath, and let's begin this journey together. Have you ever felt like your mind is a runaway train with thoughts spinning out of control? It's like trying to hold water in your hands, only to watch it slip right through. We've explored the neuroscience behind overthinking, the role of the brain's default mode network, and the impact of excessive thinking on mental health. We've also discussed simple ways to find mental calm, from grounding techniques to mindfulness meditation. As we wrap up this journey, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. Awareness is the first step towards change. By recognizing the patterns that drive our overthinking, we can begin to break free from the cycle. It's not about never thinking, but about thinking with presence. We can learn to observe our thoughts without getting caught up in them. So, what does it mean to think with presence? It means being kind to ourselves rather than beating ourselves up over our thoughts. It means acknowledging that we're not our thoughts, but the observer of those thoughts. It means taking small steps towards finding mental calm and being patient with ourselves as we grow. As we move forward, remember that healing takes time. It's a journey, not a destination. And when our thoughts spiral out of control, we can try to pause, breathe, and let go. We can remind ourselves that we're not alone and that we're capable of change. So, what helps you when your thoughts spiral? Share your stories, your struggles, and your insights. Let's support each other on this journey towards mental calm. Have you ever felt like you're stuck in a never-ending cycle of thoughts, unable to quiet your mind or find peace? You're not alone. Throughout this video, we've explored the complex neuroscience behind overthinking, from the brain's default mode network to the role of emotions and the prefrontal cortex. We've also delved into simple yet powerful tools for finding mental calm, from grounding techniques to mindfulness meditation. As we wrap up this journey, it's essential to remember that understanding the neuroscience behind overthinking is just the first step. The real magic happens when we apply this knowledge to our daily lives. So, what can you do today to start breaking free from the cycle of overthinking? Take small steps towards finding mental calm. Start with one technique, like the 5-4-3-2-1 method or journaling, and commit to practicing it for just a few minutes each day. As you become more comfortable with these tools, you can gradually incorporate more into your routine. Remember, healing takes time, and it's essential to be kind to yourself throughout the process. Don't be too hard on yourself when your mind wanders or when you struggle to quiet your thoughts. Instead, acknowledge the challenge and gently guide yourself back to the present moment. The power of self-compassion is a game changer in this journey. When we treat ourselves with kindness and understanding, we create a safe space for growth and transformation. And if you ever feel like you're struggling to manage your thoughts or emotions, don't hesitate to seek help from a mental health professional. In closing, I want to leave you with a final thought. The goal isn't to never think, but to think with presence. By cultivating awareness, acceptance, and compassion, we can learn to navigate our thoughts with greater ease and find peace in the midst of chaos. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you all the best on your path towards mental calm and well-being. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, help us reach more awesome people like you by hitting the like button and subscribing. It really makes a difference. Thanks, and see you in the next one.